Margarita, thank you so much for joining me here today. This new CISO Spotlight series has been a tremendous hit so far, and really, really excited to talk to you today. We have a nice history together, and I was so excited that you accepted to be part of this.
Well, thank you
Um,
so much, Dan. I'm excited today that I get to join you on the CISO Spotlight and really grateful that we have a chance to chat and catch up and share some stories.
Same here, same here. And you have such a great story. Why don't you give us, for those listening, a quick history and background on your career journey to date?
Sure. So hopefully it'll be to an audience that hasn't heard this story before. For those that have, I'm sorry. But I always say cybersecurity is my accidental career. I did not go to school in cyber and computer science or anything like that. Kind of fell in my lap, so to speak, in terms of how I ended up in the cybersecurity world. So my undergrad was in business administration, and straight out of college, I went to school here in Miami, Florida. Go Canes, even though there's no Go Canes yesterday. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, I went to school here in Miami, and as I graduated, I started working in a financial institution. I was working more in the risk management umbrella. We're talking about 23 years ago, which is insane. I can't believe it's even been that long. But back then, there was no cybersecurity. There was data security, and it was an
Totally.
office of one. And that poor individual was being just tortured by all of the regulatory audits that were going on at that time,
They
which
did
is
it
very
all.
traditional.
Yeah.
Did. He was a man of many talents. But regulatory audits are just very proliferal in financial services. And he reported into the same boss that I had in the risk management arm. I was straight out of college, very hungry, very focused, very willing to do whatever it took to grow, to learn. So she asked me if I would help him because he was kind of drowning. There was a lot going on. And that was my first exposure to data security, cybersecurity. And I fell completely head over heels for what it was at that time. So learned a lot, continued to kind of assist him, learn about our tech, and just partner in. And I loved it so much, Dan, that I asked my boss, can I kind of continue helping him? I mean, there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of transformation. It was like the beginning of a lot of transformation that was going on at the bank from a tech perspective. And she said yes. So for those 2 years, I did dual roles. They got, the benefit of having one individual do multiple roles for the organization. And then 2 years later, the bank was sold. And I had to make a decision career wise, was I going to pursue this or was I going to stay more on the business side? And I'll be honest, at first I was like, wow, I got a degree in business administration for nothing because I really love this tech stuff. It was really exciting and new and innovative. But I decided to go back to school. And my mentors at that time, which mentoring is something I'm sure we'll dive into at some
Oh
point, but
yeah.
because it's so powerful, my mentors at that time told me, Margarita, if you really have a passion for this, you will make a career out of it. And I decided to go back to school. I
Love that.
pursued my
Love
next
that.
role, began as an analyst at another financial institution, went back, got tons of certifications. There's a lot of letters after my name. Got my master's, went to Harvard University to do that in information systems. Little by little, kept growing and learning, and it's been amazing to the point where now, 23 years later, I get to see in this seat as the global CISO for Carnival Corporation.
Yeah, I mean, what a story, right? You're back home, back to your roots,
Yes,
working for probably one of the coolest companies that you could be a CISO for, right?
absolutely. Dream job, Dan. I love this place.
It is a dream job. I mean, you nailed it. Like, how does that get any better? A place that manufactures like fun and good times and good vibes for a living. And of course, it's a business, and a business that's gone through hard times with the pandemic. You and I have talked about that a little
Absolutely.
bit, and I'm sure that's, helped shape the company and helped make the company a lot stronger, um,
Absolutely.
over those years. But I mean, what a cool story. I'm so happy for you.
Carnival is an incredible organization. Most folks think of Carnival just as Carnival Cruise Line. They don't realize that Carnival is comprised of 8 other brands like
Yep.
Princess, Holland America, Seabourn, Aida, P&O,
Yep.
Costa. We have a lot of wonderful brands that comprise our organization that meet different markets and all span a global market. So it's very, very cool. I get to secure floating cities. I love my job.
And I know this personally because my first cruise ever was a Holland America cruise.
Really? That's amazing.
Yes.
That I didn't know about you. Fun facts, Dan. I love it.
Fun facts. Yeah, I was in uh, Spain for an ISACA event, and my wife ended up joining me, and we sailed around and went to a couple of places in Italy and then Monaco. And since then, I'm like, I love cruising. This is amazing. So,
It is amazing.
Holland America was so much fun.
They're
And
a wonderful, wonderful line. Very, very cool. So I'm glad that was your first experience.
it was my first
I
experience
hope it
there,
wasn't your last. I hope you do a lot more cruises. There's a lot of really great vessels out there with wonderful experiences. But yeah, to your point, I mean, this industry is amazing. I've been predominantly in financial services, I would say the first decade of my career. From there, I've been in telecommunications, I've been in retail, I've been in real estate. I mean, every industry is so different than obviously hospitality and cruise, but the underlying foundation of the challenges that we face are very similar. So it's incredible to see that cybersecurity spans so many industries. We're all fighting kind of the same battles.
Amen. And Margaret, I have to know, like, when when was that defining moment for you, or maybe it was a series of defining moments when you're like, cybersecurity is for me. I love this. Can you help me and the listeners understand when you had that realization and um,
Sure.
how that drove you?
It was very early on. I think what I loved the most about it is that it's very different than I think a lot of other disciplines are in the sense that, you know, when I first went into college, my initial major was accounting. And nothing against the accountants out there, they serve a very important role. However, it is very cyclical in the sense of you're doing kind of the same things, you know, in a cycle, and, you know, it's very structured in that sense. Um,
Yep.
I ended up getting my degree in business administration with a concentration in finance, also very structured, a little less structured, obviously, than accounting. There is, you know, room for creativity depending on what area of finance you dive into. But when I was first exposed to technology, and again, it was just at the onset of huge digital transformation, things were changing so quickly. And I love puzzles. I've always loved puzzles. I love to be creative. I love to think outside the box. And because I had that business background, but had that love and fascination of technology, it really became kind of that secret sauce to help me grow within an industry where traditionally you had just innate technologists, folks that went to school for computer science or information systems, but didn't really understand the business back end of things. But I did. And because I was able to kind of translate things back and forth, it made it just incredibly easy for me to really help facilitate innovation at a faster speed or faster pace.
For sure.
So, at the exposure of technology and just seeing everything that was available, that was out there, at that time, I mean, we were transitioning from everything being on-prem to everything kind of going into the cloud. And it was such a pivotal moment, kind of like what we're seeing today with AI, where it's just changing the way we do things. I
Yeah.
was at a time where everything was changing on how you saw and how you leveraged technology in your business. And that was incredibly exciting for me, as well as, again, being able to help folks that were not innate technologists move forward and really leverage technology to get the best benefit out of it.
Oh man, I love that. And so many CISOs have a sort of a similar story in a couple of ways, right? Like, not setting out on a path that was cyber focused and then, finding their love, right? And finding their way into that. And so many, CISOs also talk about having to evolve fast, right? You're sort of that translation layer for technology risk, and you have to translate it, you know, up the chain to C-suite executives and board members and audit committees, but also down the chain to, front level people who are on the front lines fighting risks day in, day out, or operating a vessel, in the middle of the Caribbean.
Absolutely.
Um, so can you talk a little bit about your leadership approach and how you stay nimble and adapt to these changes, communicate risk effectively? Like, what's the secret sauce that makes Margarita successful?
I could tell you, but I'm just kidding. Um, the secret
We'll bleep that
sauce.
part out. Yeah.
The secret sauce to me is really, or where the magic really happens, is that, I don't go into anything with kind of preconceived notions. I'm going to meet my audience where they are. I'm going to understand what's important to them and how to speak to them in a way that really resonates with them. So, obviously, when I'm leading my team, it's going to be very different than if I'm having a conversation with, the audit committee, or if I'm having a conversation with a ship captain. Um, each has an area that's really important to them, that resonates with them, that, affects them, that they get excited about or that they can connect to. So I see myself as a connector. I see myself as that connector between technology and business. I see it as a connector between any other audience and what we're trying to accomplish. I've never approached security as a kind of yes and no, black and white, because there is no black and white. And the moment that you start with the black and the whites and you're trying to be so rigid is where folks are going to really find a way to get around you
Yeah,
and just not include you into
totally.
what, is trying to be accomplished. So I've always tried to be a partner and be very creative in terms of how do we accomplish what we're trying to do in the most secure fashion possible. And if it's, an area or a concern that maybe we are just taking on too much risk, well, how do I ensure that I'm communicating that and that I am really quantifying what that risk is and helping my organization and really supporting them to make the decision? Because ultimately, I'm not going to make the risk decision. I'm a facilitator. I will help facilitate those decisions. I will give options. I will give ideas. I will give the data. Data is key. Data is incredibly important in the storytelling of what you're trying to communicate across. But I won't make that final decision. That decision resides, in the hands of somebody else within our organization, depending on, what the decision is. And I've always believed that relationships are key to anything that we're trying to do and trying to deliver. So I have really great relationships with all of my executive management, with all of my stakeholders, with my team. Like I am always trying to understand what's important to them and how I can take what we're trying to
Mhm.
accomplish and really bring that full circle.
Yeah, that relationship aspect is like so important. And I will tell you that is a common theme I've been hearing in these interviews, right? Is I don't know, building relationships at all levels uh matters a lot, and how that like the people element is almost like probably far greater than the technical element of
Yes,
being a CISO these days, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Undeniable. I mean, you need to know what you're doing. You need to be technically adept. You need to
But that's
be,
like table stakes.
that's table stakes. You need to have the correct business acumen. If you don't know how to lead, if you don't know how to connect, if you don't know how to understand, if you don't know how to get out of your own way, you're not going to be as successful as you truly could be. And it pays dividends to invest in your people. Then your people will also invest in you. And it's just this beautiful cycle that works well together.
Yeah. Speaking of investing, that's a perfect segue. So, a question I've loved asking is, there's a lot of hype out there, especially with AI right now.
Mhm.
Um, in your perspective, what's one of the more overhyped things that security teams are spending a little too much time on? And conversely, if you have any thoughts on what might be um, underhyped and not getting enough attention, I'd be curious to hear that as well.
So, on the AI front, I think that, obviously it is changing
Yeah.
the way we do everything. And I think this mentality of I'm going to be able to reduce my headcount by 50% because now I have some AI tools. We've always had AI tools. Like that's not that new for us. On the technology side, sure, we're adapting it in different ways and whatnot, which is great. But thinking that, we're going to transform the day in and day out, or we're going to be able to be 50% leaner, it's not a reality. I think there was this Forbes article that came out a couple months ago that was really talking about all the AI pilots that are failing and that they're not delivering. I mean,
Yeah,
conceptually
I
they're
saw that.
great, but they're
Yeah.
not able to truly, kind of deliver in that way. I think what is kind of undervalued, Dan, if I'm going to be completely candid with you, is the basics. What are we doing from a patching perspective? What are we doing from an observability perspective? How are you managing identity in your organization? Like, can we just go back to some of the basics? Because the reality is that you're going to see some AI tie-ins and everything that is just, again, table stakes for security. And I think we're getting so caught
Yeah,
up in the shiny tool, which is great, is important. It can help facilitate and accelerate things. But if you don't focus on some of the basic core tenets of security, then you're going to have an issue. I don't care how much AI you throw at it.
1,000%, right? And like even AI, you could boil it down to the OSI model and
Yeah,
say, look, there's the data layer, there's the communication layer, like there's the application layer. Like all these things exist. And I'm totally with you. Like even the most hype thing, you could sort of break it down into its parts and say, all of these things exist, and we still have to protect the data. We still have to think about how the application built on top of that could be taken advantage of. So those basics are so key. And yeah, agreed. I think businesses are learning use cases for AI. There's a lot of great ones out there, but there's still a lot of experimentation going on, right?
absolutely. I think what
So
concerns me the most, though, Dan, is that, we focus a lot on the use cases, and there's tons of things that we can
mhm,
do and that we can leverage AI from. But where's AI readiness? How clean is your data? How well governed is your data? Because at the reality of it all, it's like if you don't do what you need to do from that perspective, I don't care how much AI you throw at it, garbage in, garbage out, then you're going to have models that are hallucinating, and just giving you data that is just bad, inherently bad. So we really need to take a step back and go back again. Core, basic, foundational things from a data perspective, what we want to build and accelerate and leverage
yeah.
all that's to come. But I'm a very big proponent of focusing on the basics first. And my team knows, don't bring me shiny objects, shiny new tools. They're all exciting. Tell me where we are from a patching perspective. Tell me, that we're complete from an observability perspective. Tell me that we've reduced our mean time to detect and our mean time to respond. Those are the things, that to me are incredibly important. Everything
Move the
else,
needle.
those are
Yeah.
add-ons.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, right, that shiny object syndrome could help lead to, what I call whiplash, right? You're looking over here, and then it's like, look over here. You get that whiplash effect, right? And that can lead to burnout in security teams. That could lead to
Absolutely.
like disengagement. That could be tough on your people. And one of the things that I'd love to hear your perspectives on are, I'm sure what you just articulated is a big part of that, but how do um, you prevent that in your people? And I'm sure you have a wonderful team, and when we have wonderful teams, they're usually in it for the right reason. They're usually in cyber because like they see it as like, okay, this is good versus evil. I want to be on the good side, right? And there's never a shortage of things to do, um, which is great on one hand, but on the other hand, it could almost seem like, you can never take a break. So how do you make sure your team stays refreshed and feeling like they could take a break and not go down a path where they just feel totally kind of wiped out?
Yeah. So there's
Yeah,
a couple things that I think are really important, especially, as a leader of an organization. Providing kind of clear guidance, clear roadmap, clear vision on what we're trying to accomplish is incredibly important. If I don't set that tone, then yeah, we're going to have whiplash because we're going to be looking everywhere. But if folks understand the direction that we're going, what we're trying to accomplish,
what
then
the
it's a lot
priorities are.
easier. Correct. It's
Yeah,
easier to stay kind of locked into that and not be, all over the place. I'm also very much about watching over my team, watching over my directs, making sure that they're taking the time and also modeling that. Because I think one of the things that we see a lot of are CISOs in and of itself being burnt out, as
right,
well as their teams. So I think it's incredibly important to be able to say, hey, I'm going to take vacation and I'm going to
right.
trust that I have put everything in the right hands and you guys are going to handle this. And, call me if you need me, but I am going to take some downtime. And I have a fantastic team that allows me to do that. I model that for them as well. So I set what that temperature is and what that expectation is. Don't get me wrong, we work hard, we play hard. But when it's time to disconnect, it's time to disconnect. And I've always been very open about, my priorities, being present for my family, being present for my friends, being present for my team. When I'm here, I'm all in. And that's what I expect from them. So, what I expect from them, they also expect from me. And, together we kind of work through those things. I think another part that's really important and that contributes to it, and I think it's an area that is so under focused on, is what's your org structure? Like, do you have the right people on the right bus, in the right seat? Are you supporting the level of work that you're expecting from folks? Are you structured to support that? Or are you just, you have an amazing couple of directs that are bombarded doing all the work, and then folks that are lower levels down, you're not really getting to get that optimization of that head count. So I challenge my team as well. Like, I don't want to see my directs in the weeds. They need to be strategic. That's why they have levels, and understanding how it is that they need to direct their teams so that they can get the most out, and then investing in them. I think that one of the things that also fills my cup is the opportunity to go and participate in conferences and learn. Those are times where we get to kind of disconnect from the day to day and just kind of fill our cup. And as technologists, it's something that's incredibly important. So there's no silver bullet, but there's multiple things that I do in order to make sure. And if I see that one of my team members are kind of at that brink, and you kind of get a feel for that when you're having your one-on-ones and you're seeing, how are people? Are they irritable? Are they engaged? Are they productive? If you see that there's a disconnect between how they normally operate, then I'm taking the time to say, hey, are you okay? Is there something that I can do? How can I help you? How can I ensure your success? So you get engaged in a multiple ways and multiple areas, and you really help your folks kind of stay focused and locked in. And you model vulnerability as well, and you model not leading a life that will lead to burnout, which, we all have moments that we work a little harder than we should. And they know that they can come do the same with me and tell me, hey, you need to take a break. Hey, we got this. So we take care of each other ultimately.
I love that. I love that so much. And thank you for your leadership with that. And one of the things you said that resonated with me is leaving some space for our team to, learn and fill up their cup in that way. And I think so many that are in this field love it because it is a field where you need to constantly learn, right? You have to sort of stay on top of the ever-changing dynamic within, technology and the cyber front. So it's good to make sure your team has time to do that. And I know that makes me feel refreshed when I could sort of step away from, the calls and the emails and like learn something. It's
Mhm.
fantastic for me. So I love that you said that. And that's a great segue into a question I had about, younger cyber professionals and them kind of coming up in the industry. Um, I think a lot of them, see these cyber leadership um, positions and they see folks out there that are doing a great job and, getting the accolades, winning the awards. But I don't know that they know everything that goes into what, being a CISO actually means or is. What do you think is one of the bigger misconceptions that maybe a younger cyber professional has about what being a CISO really means?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Common misconceptions. Um, that we are not, having to roll up our sleeves and get into the weeds as much. I think an effective leader has to roll up their sleeves and get into the weeds as much. I think that, certain folks can kind of take a look at this role and think, that it's easy and that, all we're doing is, communicating with folks and helping to translate. But no, we have to get incredibly creative. We're managing, large teams with lots of different personalities and lots of different skill sets. And managing strategy for a program is probably one of the most complicated things that any cyber professional does. And you're having to stay ahead of trends, and you're having to stay ahead of all the malicious actors and their creativity. It's a huge responsibility.
It is.
And they only have to get it right once. So it can seem, very glamorous and oh wow, they're the CISO of such and such brand, and that's so cool. Sure. But it comes with lots and lots of responsibility. I mean, in my case, I'm securing floating cities. So securing things from an office perspective, like shoreside, that's the easy part of my job. Making sure that our vessels are secure, that's the hard part of my job. Because a bad day in that space can be quite catastrophic.
It's higher stakes, right?
It's
Much higher stakes.
absolutely. So, operating strategically, you're having to anticipate a lot more than just dealing with things tactically. Tactically is checklist, you do this, you do that, you move this from here to there, you connect this, you connect that. That's the easy part. But having to take a look at everything that is going on within an organization, because it's not just about the technology, it's also about the direction of the business and what's important to the business and what are the expectations from a bottom line perspective. Having to plug into all areas because cyber is just tied into so many different areas within any organization, and having to balance that out to drive your own strategy. Um, may not be as glamorous as people think it is. It's a lot of hard work. I think you had to be kind of, built for that. You're definitely built different. The CISO friends of mine that also do this and love what we do are definitely glutton for punishments. I know I am as well. But I love it. I absolutely love it. I've been doing this, like I said, 20 plus years now, and I wouldn't do anything else. It's so much fun.
Um, it, it- I have a fun question. If you could put a
Okay.
billboard on 95 that,
Okay.
let's say new CISOs have to pass it every day on their way into the office, uh, what would that message on the billboard be? Like if you had to, give one piece of advice to, a new CISO, what would that be?
Meet
Yeah.
everyone. That would be my advice. Relationships are so important. It doesn't matter if it's your beginning analyst or if it's the CEO of your
Yeah.
organization.
Man, I
Meet
love that.
everyone, learn from everyone,
That would
connect.
fit on a billboard. That's perfect.
It would. It would. If we were charging by the letters, I think I made a good slogan there, but it's really important. You really need to learn everything and everyone that's going to contribute to the success of an organization. And relationships are so important. It's really the only way that you're able to effectually create change and influence change for the better.
Yeah. Get out and meet people. I mean,
Hmm.
it doesn't get any better than that. Um, Margaret, are there any books, concepts, philosophies, podcasts, things that have had an outsized impact on the way you lead or resources that you really like or would recommend to the audience?
Oh my God, there's so many. I'm a kind of a book nerd, Dan. I love, love, love reading and learning. There is so many that I could pick from. I'm trying to think which one is probably the best one to talk about now. There's one that I recently read called Team Intelligence
Okay.
by John Levy. I don't know if you've read it.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. So essentially, it's this whole study of how teams collectively together are stronger. So there's kind of this concept where
Yeah.
we think that we need to focus so much on like what our weaknesses are
Right.
individually instead of really focusing on our strengths in a more collaborative format and really helping, to solve problems and to make decisions. I'm a very collaborative leader, and I think that's probably why it resonates so much with me. But, my team and I have begun kind of reading this particular book and working through it together. And it is so powerful. Like the things that kind of stem from these sessions where we're collectively feeding from the intelligence of this group is so powerful. So I think that's definitely one of my favorites. Um,
I love that.
there's so many. There's so many books that are out there. Podcasts, I love them. I have an hour and 15-minute drive, so I'm always
Oh,
listening to something. I do love, my true crime and American Scandal stuff as well, because that's a lot of fun. You can learn a lot from things that have happened in history,
yes, you
so that they
can.
don't happen again.
Yeah.
Um, but ultimately, I mean, I think that as someone that is always seeking to grow and as a professional, I think that's the one thing that has defined me. My love of knowledge and my love of just growing and learning from other people and being open to just listening and not having this attitude of I know it all, but willing to sit down and listen and learn from others that have different opinions from me or have different approaches. There's always a nugget you can take with you.
Yeah. And to sort of cap things off, I have to ask, if there's someone out there that you've worked with in your career or in your past, or someone that's helped you along the way, anyone that you would want to give a shout out or show some
There's too
gratitude towards.
many,
There's
Dan.
probably a
I
million,
mentioned
I bet.
one.
I
I
know.
mentioned one and I don't mention the other. You're trying to get me in trouble, friend. I believe a lot in relationships. I really do. And I have this amazing network of CISO colleagues that I know that I can pick up a phone at any time and say, hey, what are you seeing here? Or, hey, I'm considering this tech. What are you doing? I mean, we even do CISO strategy
Great
days where we
community.
all get together and we share information with each other in terms of, strategically, what are you thinking here? And we feed off of that because, again, team intelligence.
Yep,
Cybersecurity is one of the only areas that it's not a
totally is.
competitive advantage. Like,
Yep.
I can absolutely sit down and have a conversation with the Royal Caribbean CISO, Jairo Orea, who's a very, very good friend of mine. And it doesn't have any impact to the bottom line for Carnival or for Royal, because ultimately a problem for me is a problem for him, and a problem for
Yep.
him is a problem for me. So I love the fact that we get to collaborate together and we're stronger together. And it really doesn't matter what industry you're in. I mean, there's tons of CISO friends of mine, and I'm not going to mention any others because they will absolutely call me out if I forget to mention even one of them. There are a lot of really great friends out there, and I'm so grateful that that partnership is there and that they know that they can pick up a phone and call me at any time as well. Anything I can do to support, the industry, that's really what it's about.
That is one of the great things about cyber, and one of the things that definitely drew me in, right, is that there is this just overarching community aspect throughout the entire industry. It's an industry of sharing, and um, at the end of the day, yeah, it is like, how do we, are you on the side of good? Are you on the side of bad? And which side do you want to be on, and why? And so I think we all love that about this. Um, well, Margarita, that concludes our session. I really, really enjoyed this, and I cannot thank you enough for wanting to share some of your story with us. It's a tremendously successful journey that you've been on. Not for lack of hard work or anything, along those lines. You've definitely put in your dues and have made it happen for yourself. And just want to say congratulations to you, and thank you so much for doing this with me here today. You're such a gracious and thoughtful leader, and I really appreciate you sharing some of that with us today.
Absolutely, Dan. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun. Hopefully, we'll do it again.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.